UMG and TikTok.
Independent artists, I think it's a win. So then we at school the next day. Next thing I know, I'm hearing everybody's like, yo, G, I didn't know you was Indian, bro. It's like, bro, I'm not Indian. I was hip to like Kanye, Nas, and Wayne. Great. I tried out for the basketball team. I couldn't even make a layup. It would go over the basket, like the whole basket. The whole basket. Being a rapper is being an artist, and being an artist is being you.
Has there been a moment for you where you like had an opportunity that's been across the table that was like, dang, bro, like, that's some good money?
There's a
What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode number 1 of the SBN podcast, where we help starving artists learn how to cook. Today, I have a very special guest right here. Y'all can't see him yet, but this is one of my favorite artists, and I'm not just saying that because I've directed videos for him, but he's just such a man of substance is the way I like to say it. Without further ado, G Salih.
Nehemiah, what's good?
Welcome, bro.
My brother, man. Thank you for having me on, bro.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for being here. For context for everyone that's watching online, G flew into town, shoot some content with us. So we got some videos done yesterday.
Yes, sir.
And last minute, I decided to start this podcast, which is something I've been thinking about for a minute. But God downloaded all the visions into me yesterday, so I have all of that today. He worked everything out to make this happen today, so we could get this podcast done. So this happened in less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like from my idea of like, I want to do this and I decided to make it happen, to setting all this stuff up, to buying 2 more cameras, that all happened very fast. So that's something we'll talk about later at a later point, but we're here for you, bro. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, man.
Before we get into anything, I want to ask you who you are and why you do. Not what you do, but let's start with why you do, period. I want you to answer those questions.
100%. So I would say who I am. I'm an artist. Goes by the name of G Salih. Sudanese American. I think that's a big part of how I see myself. You know, like that kind of dual sense of identity of being a second generation immigrant, my parents being Sudanese and me being born in the States. So like that comes out a lot in my art and just in everything that I do. And it's a big part of my why. You know what I mean? You know, I feel like growing up, every year, every 2 years, I would go back to Sudan. I would see my extended family. I would see how life was over there. And being a kid growing up in a certain environment and then going back to East Africa, you know what I mean, where in certain communities it's standard of living isn't the same as it is in the States. Environment isn't the same. Culture, traditions are different. But it still felt like home in a way, you know. But having that like foundational sense of like, oh, this is home for me, but also seeing the difference between my life here and my life there, or life there in general, that kind of, I feel like, formed a purpose in me from a young age. Like, yo, whatever I do, I want to do it to connect with people at a deeper level in the purpose of helping, serving, you know what I mean? Doing everything that I can do within my power and doing the things that I love to do, but doing them with a purpose of serving others, you know, and impacting others in a positive way. So I think that's a major part of my why behind everything I do. Comes out in my music and the way that I get, you know, ideas across is that most of my ideas are like, yo, I'm trying to not necessarily preach or anything, because, you know what I mean, I'm flawed myself, but dissecting those flaws and dissecting myself, and hopefully people find a way to connect through the common human experience in that.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I never asked you that question, so seeing all that together is really cool to see, because I've seen pieces of that just knowing you for a year at this point and working with you. Yeah. But hearing it articulated in a few sentences like that makes a lot of sense. I definitely say that's true to what I've experienced of you and your art so far. So you mentioned Sudanese American. You grew up and were born here in America though, right? In Virginia.
Yeah,
so
Virginia.
Talk to me about like where you grew up, your background, a little bit of that. For
some context. DMV baby. Grew up in Virginia, Northern Virginia area. You know what I'm saying? Moved to a town called Gainesville, which is like suburban area, Virginia. young when I was young, maybe like 8 years old. So grew up out there. I grew up, actually, was interesting enough. I was born in an area called Falls Church. Falls Church is super diverse, like mad different cultures, a lot of East Africans, a lot of Ethiopians, Sudanese, Somalis, but also a lot of, Latinos, Spanish, Hispanics. It was just like a melting pot of like different kinds of people. And then I moved when I was like 8 years old to Gainesville, which was still developing. It was like back then it was still kind of like rural-esque, transitioning into like, suburban. So I went from a place that was super diverse to a place that wasn't as diverse.
Right.
So the people I was around, it was like mostly Americans now, and like white American, African Americans, you know what I mean? And I don't think there was probably a Sudanese family within like a 30-mile radius of us.
Yeah. So it was rural, like you said, rural/suburban.
Yeah. So like growing up, moving from a place that was super diverse to a place where there weren't as many different types of people, I won't say that I didn't fit in, but I was always trying to fit in.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So you said from birth until 8 years old, you were in Falls, what's it called?
Falls Church.
Falls Church was the name of the area in Virginia.
Yeah, right outside D.C.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then after 8 years old, you moved to
Gainesville. Yep.
Gainesville was very rural, very suburban. A lot of white American type people, not a lot of diversity.
Right.
I actually was listening to some of your music yesterday, and from Essential Oils. I was going super far back in the discography.
Yeah.
And that's a piece I screenshotted because I wanted to ask you about it. But this one piece, you say, I grew up in all white neighborhoods and tried to fit in with all the white kids. With dogs and a white fence, whose lawns was the nicest. My mom had the block smelling like 6 different spices. Go ahead and finish it. Last one. Do you remember?
I try to act like them, although I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
I even wore a cross around my neck, started wearing it.
Yeah.
Until my parents came around speaking Arabic, and they go my cover.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
Talk
like,
to me about that. Like I know that's probably from that time, right? After 8 years old when you moved to Gainesville.
Yeah. And I think around that time, like I said, I was in a environment where I felt like, everybody was a certain way around me. And when you're in that type of environment, especially as a second generation immigrant, you really want to like fit in, you know what I mean? Like anything outside of how Americans are or how the people around you are feels like other. So like you don't want to be that other or labeled that or seen as that. So like you try and find ways to fit in. And not to say like just the white kids, but even African Americans, you know what I mean? Even though we black and we share that in common, obviously I gravitated towards them more because I was more, tapped in on that front.
Right.
But or like I could relate more on that front, but still there was a little sense of otherness.
Yeah.
I remember my homie Tariq, shout out Tariq. Shout out Ty, man. You know what story I'm about to tell. But there was a time me and my family were at Costco. I don't know if y'all got Costco out
Yeah,
here,
we do, yep.
Groceries, yeah. Like a grocery store. So we went shopping, and me and the fam were loading the groceries into our car. And I was talking to my brother. I was telling him like, I was like, Khush al-Arabiyya. Like I was talking in Arabic, which means like get in the car. And Tariq just happened to, and this is middle school. I was like, maybe we were like 12 years old or something like that. Tariq come around the block at that very moment. And him and his mom were also shopping in Costco. And he was like, oh, he heard me speak Arabic for a second. And he looked at me like, yo, Jihad? And I was like, yeah, it was good. It was good, Ty. And he was like, yo, for a second, like it looked like he was thrown off. He was like, what's good? What's good? Nice to meet you. Nice to see you, blah, blah, blah.
So y'all knew each other at this point?
Yeah, we was
y'all
homies.
Just hadn't seen each other in a minute, or?
No, we was homies, but he didn't know I spoke, like he didn't know I spoke another language. He just thought I was African American.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when he heard me, he was like, for a second, then he was like, it was good. So then we at school the next day. Next thing I know, I'm hearing everybody's like, yo, G, I didn't know you was Indian, bro.
Oh my God.
The homies was like,
oh my
yo,
God.
G.
And your school was not diverse.
And
There's
the
a bunch
school
of
was
like
not diverse.
rural, suburban kids that had no really cultural.
I wouldn't, exactly. Cultural
Awareness.
or weren't just, immersed in that.
Gotcha.
Or didn't know as many, what I mean? Or maybe just Ty. But like, he was like, yeah, bro. So everybody's like, yo, G's Indian. I didn't know G was Indian.
That's crazy.
It's like, bro, I'm not Indian.
Wow.
I was Sudanese. You know what I'm saying? But that was kind of like their first exposure to being like, oh, G is not African American. Like he's Sudanese, speaks another language. So that kind of like was that otherness, you know what I mean, where it started to set in. Not to say that the homies didn't accept me. Those my dogs.
Right.
But it was just that feeling of like in the beginning, in the early stages of like,
as a kid, like you said, you were like 12.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. And me realizing and others realizing that it's like there's differences. You know what I mean?
That was like a turning point that sticks out. Because you're how old now?
27, just 27. Turned 27.
So that was 15 years ago, and that still sticks out in your mind. You were at Costco with your mom. Tariq is the name?
Yeah, Ty.
Ty was at Costco with his mom, just a regular day. But that day was remembered forever because of a moment like that of like, dang, bro, like I might be kind of different than the people around me. Is that what you were thinking? Like, what was it that serious to you? Like, why do you think that's such a strong memory in your head?
You know, I think it just highlights that experience of like, you know what I mean, second generation immigrants going through this reconciliation of identity, you know, trying to like, okay, who am I? Like in my environment, am I, what parts of me, like, cause obviously you're influenced by the American lifestyle and American culture and the people around you. So you are that in a sense, but like you're also, you know what I mean, the culture that is in your household, you know what I mean, the 6 different spices, the Bakhur in the Sudanese household or whatever, like as whatever's unique to your culture, you're living that in a microcosm in your house. And then you go outside of your house and you're living a different. So it's like that kind of identity, like trying to blend the two worlds in your mind and understand who you are. So I think that experience just like highlighted that general experience of like trying to reconcile that. But over time, I think I've embraced it so much. Like as I've matured, and you know, understood myself more, understood my culture more, my role, you know what I mean, in my environments, in my communities, that's when I really started appreciating that uniqueness. You know what I mean? Early on in life, you see it as otherness, but then as you grow, you start to see it as like something special about you. You know what I mean? That I'm super grateful for and that I appreciate in a very high sense. You know, in my life now. Yeah,
absolutely. I can relate to that because I know we were talking yesterday off camera about how I've had similar struggles with just identity, because I'm 23, so I'm 3 years younger than you. But 3 years, 23 to 26, that's kind of a big gap. Like as you get out of college, because I'm almost 2 years out of college. You've been out of college for a minute, so you've been able to experience who you are, find who you are, and live in that for longer than I have. So I'm kind of on the beginning side of being comfortable in who I am and knowing what I'm supposed to do. But back then, as a 12-year-old, you don't have any concept of that, right? It's just like, I want to be liked by my friends.
Yeah.
I don't even really know who I am or what I'm supposed to do in this world, or I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about, I got to get my grades up so I can play the game or whatever, or hang out with my friends, go to the court, whatever, right? So back then, that's around the time that you were starting to write as well, right? I read an article, the GQ article, and it explained how, which, by the way, congrats on that. I think I told you that when that happened. But that's huge.
Thank you,
GQ,
brother.
Like, wow,
big,
applause to G for that.
Huge.
But in that article, you were explaining how, I think it was around 8 years old or something like that, where you started writing haikus in your creative writing class.
Around,
Was that after you moved to Gainesville, or was that before?
So that was around the time I moved to Gainesville. And it's interesting because around that same time, you know, the story I was just telling about, you know, the identity thing going on in middle school, that was around the same time I started to write. And I'm just now like making that connection. But so in middle school, I took I didn't take it. They kind of made us take it, but it was a creative writing class.
They had no choice.
Yeah, I had a choice. And then I remember Miss Lee Bird. I always remember her name. Shout out Miss Lee Bird if you're still out there. Thank you for making us learn poetic, you know what I mean, poetry, and understand literature from that sense and just art from that sense. Like, we used to come into the class and we used to have to write either a haiku or a sonnet or whatever type of like poetic format type of thought kind of journal. You know what I mean? Journal, but like in a poetic form. We would do it as like a kind of brainstorming thing every time we would come into the class. So slowly I started, that was my first experience actually doing, you know what I mean, writing in poetic form, or, you know what I mean, and starting to fall in love with writing in general and expressing my thoughts in that way. And just the meaning in it and like the emotions you can convey through words and through that form, you know, of words, it got me hooked immediately. And so I would write poetry on my own, you know, outside of the stuff I was doing in the class.
So you would have your assignments in class and be like, okay, that's cool, but I'm gonna come over here and do my own thing.
Exactly.
Were you writing raps, or was it still just poetry at that time?
I mean, in the beginning, because I was introduced to poetry, but then slowly, it gravitated towards, because I was a hip hop fan too. You know what I mean? Like, I was exposed to, I think Kanye's Graduation album was the first album I ever heard. You know
said,
what I mean?
Well, I don't know if you said it, but you had to have said it if it was an interview. But in that same GQ interview, it said you were gifted.
Yeah.
Who gave that to you?
My boy Muhammad, man. Shout out Muhammad. Yeah.
So one of your friends?
Yeah. My good friend, but we used to call each other cousins because we was just, our families were so close. But yeah, so I was hip to like Kanye. I was listening to like Chingy and Nas and who else was popping around that time? I'm trying to remember who else. Wayne, especially in middle school. But like, just, I was a big hip hop fan, rap fan. So taking that gravitation that I had towards poetry, that pull that I had there, and then you know, me being a rap fan, that just led down that path into like me starting to write rhymes and put it over beats and record it on my own. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how it started.
And that all happened around that same, like around 12 years old period of, I'm starting to understand that I'm kind of different than the people around me, and I have this new creative outlet. Did any of the feelings of your identity influence your music that early, or were you not really thinking about it like that? Were you more just trying to emulate some of your idols at the time?
Man, that's a good question, man. Yeah, I think my earliest rhymes probably were just more me emulating the artists that I was tapped into, but in a sense of like relating to my, you know, what I was going through too. Like, a big thing for me was, a big, I guess, theme for me was like determination and ambition. That's always been a major theme in my life.
Right. As you said that, I those two words, you said ambition and
determination.
Determination,
like,
ambition. Thank you.
Yeah.
Those two, I hear that in your music now. So
yeah,
that's cool that it's been a theme consistent through.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like, I remember 6th grade, I tried out for the basketball team. I couldn't even make a layup, bro. Like, literally,
could you
like,
dribble?
I could slight dribble, but like when I would go up for the layup, type of layup where it would go over the basket, like the whole basket.
The whole basket.
You know what I'm saying?
You're doing better than me, bro. I can't even dribble. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna out myself and say I can't play basketball. You was doing better than me back then.
Yeah, at least, right?
I played in the YMCA Little League or whatever, and I was like, I'm good. I'm cool. That's not for me.
Or see, so I didn't even have that. You know what I mean? Luxury of YMCA.
So you had to go straight into the.
I just was like trying out because the homies was trying out.
Okay, so it was on some like, my homies are doing it. Let me do what they're doing type of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And just out of the love that I like had for the game because of them. You know what I mean? They influenced me in that way. But yeah, I couldn't shoot. I couldn't barely dribble. I could throw him the ball over the basket, and I didn't make the team. A couple of the homies made the team. So when I didn't make the team, I didn't like that feeling of the fact that like, yo, I tried out and I didn't make the team, and the homies made the team. And like, all right, so what can I do to make the team? So that kind of like was the earliest memory of me being like, nah, I got to improve at this.
And what grade was this?
This was 6th grade, man.
So you were what, like 11, 12? The same period, right?
Like 10, 11, maybe. I don't know.
How old are 6th graders?
I don't know, bro. I have no clue. They be acting much older than they are nowadays. But nah, so 6th grade, bro. So then I remember like, I asked my pops to get us me and my siblings a basketball hoop. So we got a basketball hoop type you put in the driveway. And I remember from that point, I remember I was training like I was in the NBA off season, like I was about to, you know what I mean, play in the combine next season. And I was just like, you know what I mean, like making my little siblings get my rebounds and just putting shots up from this and I putting, you know, dribbling drills, all these different things. Right. Asked my pops to put me into trainings and camps and things like that. The next season, tryouts came around, and I was like, nah, I'm making the team. You know what I'm saying? So now I had a little layup package, you know what I mean? I could dribble a little bit, whatever. So I came like way better than I was in 6th grade. And I ended up making the team. I ain't getting playing time though, but that's besides the point.
But still,
but I made the team, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so like I think that was like I said, ambition and determination and like the drive to improve and the desire to want to be better. I think that was like a big theme and something that's been ingrained in me from a young age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's up. So that's around middle school. You get to high school. You're still riding through high school, right?
Yeah.
And then what was the decision like with going to college? Like, was that always so you had both parents in the house?
Yeah.
Right? So were they both, you got to go to college, you got to get a degree, or was that a decision on your own? Because I listened to your middle child freestyle as well. I was going all the way back in the archive on YouTube. And you mentioned your pops a lot in that. Not a lot, but just enough for me to like think about it. And it seemed like you and your dad have a good relationship.
Yeah.
And it sounds like family is a huge part of who you are. So my question is twofold. One, what influence did your family have on you as a man, as a boy, and your music? And my second question is along the college route. Like, did they influence you to go to college? Did they influence you to just do whatever you felt like you should? Those are two questions I want you to answer. Let's start with the just general influence of family on your life and music.
Yeah, so family, yeah, man, family's huge. Because just as a Sudanese person, like that's family is one of the main pillars of our culture, you know? So it's a very collectivist culture. Like, you know, you depend on your family. Your family is like, you know, everything, you know, there's you lean on them for things. It's who you're around on a daily basis. Everything is built around family. So yeah, my family's been a huge influence in who I am, of course. And like my music and that comes out in that, you know? So yeah, family's big. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. So I got 4 younger siblings, 3 brothers and a sister. And
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah. So
you're
like
the oldest.
Yeah. So that's another dynamic.
Yeah.
You know, being the oldest son out of a group of siblings is like, that's a responsibility that's on your shoulders too. That's in growing up too from a young age, like learning that that's a responsibility that you have is looking out for your siblings.
Was that something is that a cultural thing? Like, being the oldest, is there significance to that in your culture, or do you think that's just like something that was implied from being the oldest? Because I felt that myself, but I'm just African American. My family's from Philly, so like I don't know what my ethnic roots are, but that's something that I always felt, is that pressure of I'm the first, so I should achieve the most and do the most. And that's not anything my parents ever said, you're the oldest and you gotta, but that's just something I think that was implied. So was it implied for you, or was it something more cultural or just explicit in your family?
Yeah, I think it's always implied, being the oldest for sure. But yeah, it's also explicit, you know, like, yeah, you the oldest son, you definitely taking care of the fam, you know what I'm saying? And also making sure your parents, you know what I mean, you're the legacy, you know what I mean? Like when your parents get old, you're also taking care of them, you know what I'm saying? You're taking care of the extended family too. Like these are things that you take on as the role of being the eldest child, you know? But yeah, that's in terms of their influence is definitely huge on who I am. In terms of college, you know, like all my Africans, if anybody who live in an African household, you know, you don't have a choice. If you live in an African household, you definitely, like, since the day you're born, they telling you going to college, you know?
Okay,
what I mean?
so that was something that was not even up for discussion.
Not even up for discussion. And especially because like now in a more mature way, I think about it, like, especially because you're afforded that opportunity because of them.
Right.
Like most of our parents being second generation, they probably went through a lot of different multitude of struggles to get to the States,
right?
To get to the UK, to get to Australia, to get to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, to get here.
To get out of a situation where there weren't many opportunities and they can't capitalize on much.
Right.
To get somewhere where now they're, you know what I mean, doing well and they're able to like help their families and support and have families that they can support. So yeah, like being now from a sense of like thinking about it like that is we're afforded that opportunity now, whereas we wouldn't have been a generation 2 ago.
Right.
So yeah, man, that's also a responsibility too.
Yeah. Now, when you were transitioning into the college part of your life and in college, is that a perspective that you had, or was it more like, man, I'm not trying to go to college, I'm just trying to rap? Like, what was your thought process during that time?
Well, during that time, I never was kind of like, nah, I'm only going to rap. Like, okay. I never really even pursued, you know what I mean, like the aspect of a career in music or a rap career. I never put my mind, when I was that age, you know what I mean, high school, was like, yo, I'm going to be a rapper.
Okay.
I don't think that came until later, maybe end of college.
So you were 22 at the end of college.
Yeah.
So just 4 years ago.
Yeah. Like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. When I would say, when people ask me like, yo, how long you been rapping? I say for forever. But like, since I've been taking this as a serious professional career path that I'm pursuing, yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago.
So since 12 years old, you've been working on your pen.
Yeah.
Just because you have a passion for the craft. But as far as I'm going to really pursue this and build an audience and figure this out, that was after college.
Yeah.
So was it like an abrupt moment, like, okay, I graduated, what's next? Or was it like a slow build of like, I think I could see myself doing this when I graduate? Like, what was that transition from, okay, I'm in college studying this thing, to I think I could be a rapper?
Yeah, the latter. It was more like, yeah, maybe I could see myself doing this. And I was kind of resistant to it at first, but the homies wouldn't let me be. You know what I mean? And they're like super supportive of just like they saw the growth and they saw the potential, and they was always like, yo, you gotta do this, bro. Like, you have a talent, like use it, at least see what you know what I mean? So when I started actually embracing that and taking that advice, I started realizing how much to connect with people, you know, people I knew, people I didn't know, and just how much people relate to, you know, what I was creating. And from there, I was like, all right, I'm vested in that purpose. Like I said, going back to the first question, like everything that I do or everything that I aspire to do is vested in that purpose of impacting others. So when I realized,
that makes sense.
Yeah, when I felt like, yo, this can impact people, this can like connect with people, this can help people, I was like, all right, now I got a purpose that's driving this. I'm not just doing it because I want to be a rapper. cool rapper, or like, you know what I mean, like get the most money, or have to be looking, or rock chains, or nicest watches, or whatever. Like, it wasn't for the material aspect of it.
Yeah, that makes so much sense with just who you are. Like, I mean, even how you're dressing right now, you didn't come on no rapper. You just came like, I'm gonna be fly.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna be my own fly.
And actually, shout out Kanani, man. This is a brand, Sudanese brand, Sudanese homie who started this brand. So just wanted to plug them real quick.
Absolutely,
you know?
Absolutely. That's what's up, man. The reason why I asked about your why first is because I wanted that to be the framework of the conversation, right? I'm reading this book, as in I read the first 3 chapters so far and I put it down. But that was enough for me to think.
Word.
It's called Know Your Why. And it's about just what the title is. Like, there's a circle and it has 3 layers to it. And in the middle is your why. The second circle outside of that is your how. And the outermost circle is your what. And it says a lot of people start from the outside and talk about their what. Like, what did you say when I asked you who you were? You said, I'm an artist. That's your what.
Yeah.
What you do. But the core of who you are is your why. And that's something I've been really interested in, like pulling out of people and understanding, because I've been thinking about that for myself.
Yeah.
So that's why I started this podcast by saying our goal is to help starving artists learn how to cook, is because that's how I felt going up, going to college, that type of thing, and feeling like I had this creative desire inside of me and having no idea how to cook, really feed myself from this thing, right?
Yeah.
So I love how you brought that back full circle and said, at this point, when I realized my homies were saying this is impactful to people, that's when I decided to be a rapper. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. Because there's some people who their why is money and attention and fame, and those things are okay. Like, that can drive people. But I feel like that's such a surface level motivation, and that will wane eventually. But your core of who you are, for you, I feel like it's such a pure place to operate from, because you can do anything. I mean, even in, like, I have another part of your music that I wanted to touch on with the project. We'll get to that later. But you mentioned your 9 to 5, And I wanted to talk a little bit about that too. Your 9 to 5, and you can tell us more about that, but that even fits into your why. So tell us what you do if you don't mind.
Yes.
Just in a brief.
Nah, definitely. So, and that's a good point to make, bro. And I'm glad we're going into this part of the conversation. So I work in international development, which is basically a field dedicated to like serving underserved communities, but in a way that promotes like their sustainability. You know what I mean? So that's international development in the simplest way, but it's more complex than that. And that's something that I, in college, realized like, yo, this is also what I want to do. Like I said, going back to Sudan, seeing how conditions were there. A lot of international development work is based in African countries, Asian countries. I mean, all over the world, but countries that need development, you know, from all aspects. So that's always been something that, you know, when I realized what that field was, it clicked in my mind like, oh, that's exactly what I would love to do with my life. So in terms of having a 9 to 5 and being an artist at the same time, I feel like, and we was having this conversation yesterday, I think we was talking about this. I think people throughout time, there's always been the stigma of like being an artist means, or being a rapper, let's say being a rapper means like you're portraying this certain image, you know, or you are move in a certain way, or like have, you know what I mean, the nicest cars and the nicest clothes and the chains and the, you know, there's like a certain aesthetic to it. And there's also a certain like idea, stigma of like what it is, what it stereotype is the better word to say, of like what it means to be a rapper. I feel like nowadays, and especially over the past 10 years, maybe, that stereotype has been falling apart, and there's no stereotype. It's right. Like being a rapper is being an artist, and being an artist is being you. So like just being yourself, like regardless of what that is, you know? So if that's who you are, then that's who you are. And yeah, be in that, live in that. But if that's not who you are, you don't have to be that. You can pursue this path. You could be an artist, you could be a rapper, you could be a videographer, you could own a business, you could, you know what I mean, cinematographer, director, like creative. You could be any type of creative while also investing in it through, you know what I mean, the other things that you do in life. So whether that's a 9 to 5 that you truly love, or whether that's a 9 to 5 that you're not really jacking, but it's paying the bills and it's helping you provide for your fam, and it's helping you invest in what you do love. I feel like that's the best way to approach anything, and it makes sense. And I feel like nowadays people are breaking that barrier of like, oh, I only got to do this, or I got to be one track minded. Nah, it's like, you know what I mean? You could be dynamic in your approach and be successful.
That's what's up. So what I'm hearing you say, just to repeat it back to make sure I understand, the part that really stuck out was you said being a rapper is being an artist, and being an artist is being you, being yourself. I think that was so profound. I wanted to repeat that to make sure people got that. Overall, what I'm hearing is that it's okay to take whatever route you need to achieve your why, as long as you're being true to yourself and what you feel like you should be doing with your life. Because the stereotypes around what an artist is are falling apart now, and it's more about, there's different ways to do and accomplish your why than there were before. Is that kind of what you're communicating?
100%.
I'm projecting my own thoughts.
No, 100%. Okay. Right on, hit the nail on the head.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
I think that's a really good point. I was talking to Calvin. Calvin's behind the camera. He's doing BTS. Shout out
Calvin, man.
Yeah. But we were just talking about that, and really the college conversation about how our parents either emigrated to the United States or grew up here, and the only thing for success of like over 6 figures and all that was to go to college and get a degree. And now with technology, YouTube University and whatever else, all these online courses, there are way different ways for you to make a living for yourself that is legitimate. They're not scammy or anything like that. They're legit ways for you to make a living for yourself. And we are not the first generation, because millennials were kind of the first to kick that off. But you're a millennial. I'm Gen Z. I think I'm like at the top of Gen Z.
Yeah.
And
I'm on the border of it. Yeah. But I identify with millennial.
Yeah. So our group is the first to really reap the true benefits of this new technological age, when it comes to business, entrepreneurship, career, and that type of thing. So there are all these different avenues that there are no rules to yet because we just haven't put boxes on them yet. And I feel like those are just now starting to form as we figured out. Like, we're the ones who are creating those spaces and places for ourselves, which is new. So yeah. I definitely agree with your whole sentiment that you should just pursue in the way that is best for you.
100.
So I want to pivot a little more faster, like further into your story. So you graduate from college, and around this time, you realize the impact your music is having, right? What do you do from there? Like, are you instantly, okay, let's, like, how did you build your team? Because you're signed now.
Yeah.
You were signed twice, though, right? You were signed to something?
No, it was my first label. Okay. You know what I mean? Co-sign. So, yeah.
Did they go through a name change?
No.
Okay, so Google's wrong, because I saw on Google there was 2 on there that you were signed to.
Yeah, Google I don't know. We gotta figure out how to get to. If there's a Google rep out there, we gotta like design my whole thing. But shout out More Music. Yeah, so I'm signed to a label called More Music right now, independent label operating out of DMV, but kind of like globally right now.
So how did you get there? Like, you get out of college, did you meet Moyne right away, or?
So I met Moyne actually my last year of college.
Okay.
Frank Moyne is the CEO of Moyne Music. And yeah, man, we kind of, so I'll backtrack a little bit. So like I said, the homies encouraged me to put music out. I put music out. I realized I was connected with people. And then I was kind of like, let me release. Let me share all these like drafts that demos, whatever I've been sharing with the homies. Let me actually put them out. So I started putting music on SoundCloud and getting responses back just from random people, fans. Back then it was like everybody was on SoundCloud.
That was what year, like 2016,
yeah,
2018, like around there?
Around that time. And yeah, man, so I was getting great feedback and I was sharing my music, linked up with a lot of like dope people, visual people on campus, so at school. So like that helped me to kind of like package what I was doing. Started something called G Styles, where every week to week we'll release like a freestyle over a record. Nowadays we just do our own stuff, but the essence of that is still there. So like that kind of helped garner a lot of attention to what I was doing and what we were doing. Then I met Moyne, and Moyne is like a mentor to me. You know what I'm saying? We worked on music together. He was a producer. And we just built a great relationship, man. And so over the years, we would work together to kind of like strategize when it comes to music, and kind of like how do we approach the best way to like release music and to get fan bases and to build. And so, that relationship eventually evolved into More Music and G Salee, and the partnership that we have is like very, very special, man. It's like, I'm very blessed to have met him in my journey, and at that stage in my journey, because before I was fully, catapulted into the industry or into like trying to businessify my music. I don't know another word, but I met somebody who helped me kind of like take gradual steps towards it, and who was like-minded and enough to me and had the same vision to do this in the right way, in an authentic way. So over time we've built in an incredible way, and we continuing to build. And so that's kind of how that progressed.
Yeah. So I'm starting to see a pattern in your story. It seems like it happened very naturally.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a forced, like, okay, I know I want to be a rapper at 12. So I'm a write, and I'm gonna try to pass out mixtapes and all this stuff. It happened very organically.
Yeah.
And more from a pure artistry standpoint that turned into a business instead of okay, how can I make money from this now?
100%.
How do you think that impacted your career? Like with that mindset, like thinking back all the way to what we talked about from 12 years old until this point in the story, how do you think that impacted your whole career?
I think it's given me a foundation, and it's set a precedent for me, just from a mindset standpoint, from an approach. Like, I don't need to pay $5,000 to open up for whoever, you know what I mean? Or maybe, but like I don't need to, you know what I'm saying? I don't need to hop on the latest trend, music trend, art, you know what I mean? Make a certain type of music or portray a certain type of image so that I go viral, so that I get those fans, you know what I'm saying? I don't need to change who I am. I don't need to force it to progress, to achieve. So like that's the precedent I think is set for me, is that no matter how long this shit takes, I don't necessarily need to like change who I am or change my approach to this in a way that takes away from who I really am at the core, and in a way that takes away from the organic nature and the authentic nature of how we approach this.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it did. I think that's
so you stayed true to your core throughout the whole time, because you started from the art perspective and you never were trying to compromise who you were to make a check. Is that a good way to say that?
Yeah. And I want to be clear too. It's not that it's not hard to do that. You know what I mean? It is challenging to stay away from temptation. It is challenging to continue to like reaffirm to yourself who you are and come back to your core. Like that's a challenging task, because there's a lot out there that can pull you away from that, and there's a lot of different like glitter, you know what I mean? There's glitter all over the place that, you know, if you're not self-aware enough or conscious enough of what's going on around you, it's easy to fall into. Very easy, just as a human being.
Has there been a moment for you where you like had an opportunity that's been across the table that was like, dang, bro, like that's some good money, or like that would be a cool opportunity for me, or good exposure, or whatever? Like, did you have a moment like that where you had to make a tough decision like that?
There's a moment where I was working with an individual who had a lot of connections. You know what I mean? They knew people in the industry. This was early on too, even before me and Moin started
so you were still in college.
Yeah, I was still in college. It wasn't like a label or anything. It was just an individual who knew a lot of people, and so we were working together, and it was kind of like a consultant type of situation. And they were much older, you know what I mean? They knew a lot of people and things of that nature, successful. But there came a point where I think from the business end and from a personal end, things just got too mixed. You know, I don't know how the best way to say this, but it like they started, you know, being a little bit kind of disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? When it came to like saying things about people in my life or the homies or my personal choices, you know what I mean? Like those things, those lines kind of got blurred. And so when those lines got blurred, I decided to take a step back.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And a step away from that, because I felt like the direction that was going didn't align with who I was.
Right. And so, was that tough because that was like almost a life-changing opportunity for you? Like if you stayed on that path, you could have been in some rooms with certain people or had some experiences.
Who knows?
Faster.
Who knows? I don't know, but it was in that moment, it was promising. You know, it was like, oh, maybe, you know. And obviously, people sell you things. Like they'll and I mean, you know, whether they believe in themselves or they believe in it or whatever, but like they'll tell you, no, we can get you here, we can get you there. No one really knows though. At the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? You, even as an artist, that knowing comes from a self-belief, but it's not a certainty that comes. It's not a factual certainty that you're gonna, you know what I mean, make $1 million or that you're gonna be successful as an artist or as anything. But like you have that belief, and that's what creates that certainty. You create it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but yeah, like back to your point, like staying true to your core, staying true to who you are. Me staying true to who I am, and like not being detracted from my path by the things along the path that may be tempting. It's something that I've carried forward into like my maturity into as an adult, and I continue to like just fortify. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's go back to my original question with this part of the segment. So you were able to stay so focused because you stayed so close to your core. That impact that it had on your music was you didn't feel like you had to sell out, basically, I think is a conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
You didn't have to compromise who you were or the journey that you were on in order to build a fan base.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about yesterday, you mentioned that your fan base just feels so authentic and connected to who you are, and they'll follow you anywhere because you stayed true to who you were. And it seems like they have a genuine connection to you and your story.
Yeah.
Which is what I wanted to help bring out in this podcast as well, is to help like tell a little bit more about your story for them, and also for anybody else who isn't a fan, to help them become a fan, you know?
Yeah.
So I have a very strong belief that people connect to people. I said this in a post that I just made, and I said that the music and the content we make, so anything we put out into the world, is a vehicle that drives people to connect to your story. And when they connect to your story, they connect to you as a person.
100%.
Right? So it sounds like, again, I don't want to project because I feel like I've been thinking about confirmation bias a lot and trying to stay away from that. But it sounds like that's kind of like what's happening with your fan base, is that you just stayed so true to who you were for this whole time, since you were 12 years old, where you had an awareness, I'm a Sudanese American. Like I always thought like I was maybe one or the other. I never really thought about that. But now I see there's this like tension between these two parts of myself, but I'm aware of that and I'm not going to deviate from that. It sounds like you were always strong in that all the way throughout, until from 12 to 26 now. And you have such a strong family. You have your homies, which you mentioned like 3 or 4 times. That seems like you have a good group of friends, and you have a great fan base, all because you stayed true to who you are.
100%.
So I want to lead that into your new project, because I feel like the project is such a good example of that. I ran it like 5 times yesterday, like back to back, just to make sure I like, because I didn't listen to it yet. I'm going to be honest. I didn't listen to it yet. Although we've worked together, we've done videos together. That's even more reason for me not to listen to a project, if I'm being honest. I'm going to be completely honest as a director, because I listen to music all day, every day.
Yeah, all the time.
All the stuff we do.
I'm sure.
But this was a special, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm really glad I didn't, because I had the context of the conversations we've had, and then I had the mindset to prepare for an interview. I'm saying all this to say, I really feel like this album was such a good example of everything we just talked about staying true to your core, right? So talk to us about your why for the project, like your intention behind your project. And what was the name of it first, and then answer that question.
Yeah, so great question. Yeah, the project is Jihad 2. The first project, or it's a sequel to my first EP, which was called Jihad. So Jihad 2 is like, I think for me, just the idea of making an EP, and my name is Jihad, of course. I don't know if I mentioned that. But like creating a project that's self-entitled, I think it kind of captures snapshot of where I am in my journey as an individual and as an artist. So Jihad 2 is a EP of 6 tracks that really just captures where I am in my artist journey, but also just captures a lot of like, you know what I mean? You know, like I said, and like you said, humans connect to humans. So like in these projects, it's very relatable substance. It's very like, you know, experiences that all of us go through. But it's just kind of what I've drawn out from these experiences in this current stage of where I am, you know, in my life, and in my personal development. So, yeah, that's the Jihad 2 project. We just dropped it in December. It's been doing great, and I love hearing from. And you mentioned the fan base, Mo. Like, I love the fact that my fan base and the people who listen to my music genuinely appreciate the things that I'm saying in the music. You know what I mean? Like, they appreciate the feelings that it evokes. They appreciate like the meaning and the deep depth of the music. It's not just like that it sounds good, but it's like it means something. You know, so I think hearing, you know what I mean, feedback from the fans and feedback from all the people who've followed the journey, you know what I mean, from Jihad, or whether they're new fans and they listen to Jihad 2 and then they go back listening to Jihad and More in Store and the singles we've dropped, Bouquets and Found You and all these different ones, they know that this is just, you know what I mean, they feel it in that moment, but they also know that this is the beginning. And like there's gonna be so much more.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing that I have, you know what I mean, that culture within my fan base. So they know, you know what I'm saying, this stuff is going to keep coming, and it's going to continue to be things that they can relate to and mean something to them.
Yeah. What's one word that you want people to walk away from after they listen to your project? Like the one word, what feeling or what thought, like what's one word to describe the feeling you want them to walk away with?
I would say it would be 2 words. It would be a phrase. And the phrase would be know yourself. I think that's what you walk out of, you leave Jihad 2 and a lot of my music, feeling. That's the takeaway, is like, know yourself. I think that would be the best way to encapsulate that. Yeah.
How do you think your music helps people know themselves?
I think through the experience of hearing me grappling with the challenge of trying to know myself, you know what I mean, but in a way that's universal to all of us, because we all go through the same things in different ways. So I think my music is just a peek into how I go through the challenges of, you know what I mean, ups and downs and difficulties, and trying to like be something bigger than what I am, or trying to better myself, or following my dreams, or realizing how the traumas and the experiences that I went through in my earlier life made me the person that I am today, or the temptations like we talked about, and how that factors into trying to resist the temptations, but you know what I mean, those times where it gets hard to, I think that's all encapsulated within Jihad 2. And yeah, it's a good way to, you know what I mean, come, because I introspect a lot, you know, just myself. I journal, I meditate, you know what I mean, I break down who I am and try to become more self-aware. So I would hope that in my music, that's what you would take away, is like, I want to also understand myself more, introspect, you know?
Yeah. So in the process of you being introspective as a person, that comes out in your music, and you want to encourage other people to know themselves through reflecting on their own lives, through you being an example of doing that through your music. Is that a good way to summarize?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. UMG and TikTok. I want to get your take. You heard about what happened, right? I'm sure you're in the industry.
Yeah.
You're technically an independent artist.
Yeah.
You're signed to a label, but it's an independent label. It's not affiliated with any of the majors, right? So technically y'all's crop is still independent. So as an independent artist, what are your thoughts on Universal Music Group? For context, for those that don't know, Universal Music Group was not able to re-up their contract with TikTok because TikTok was trying to pay less than their previous contract. In an effort to help artists, I put that in quotes, they didn't negotiate at all, or couldn't find an agreement, so they pulled out completely and took all of Universal Music Group's artists off of TikTok. So all that music is gone. So Drake, Kendrick, I think, like everybody, like Taylor Swift. Yeah. All their stuff is off of TikTok, which is huge because TikTok is big for discovery, right? So what's your take on that?
Man, TikTok, like you said, is huge for the industry, man. And I feel like over the past 3 years, it's ballooned as like a platform that you really should have in your arsenal and like master, so that to push your content and market your music. But I feel like there's 2 sides of the coin, right? So like for those artists, those UMG artists that were taken off, I think now they have to scramble to like figure out, I guess their marketing departments have to scramble to figure out, how do we continue to achieve the same level of like, you know, push for this artist at the grassroots level, especially because TikTok is a very grassroots platform. So how do we continue to like give them that fuel? But on this other side of the coin, it's like a lot of independent artists might benefit from this because you don't have like a Drake, for example, but if there's a Drake-esque type of independent rapper, you know what I mean, or artist, and they're putting, now it's like you don't have access to Drake's music, but you have more, that artist has more visibility on your timeline. So I think, yeah, man, I think it's a good and bad thing, just depending on what side of the coin you fall. But for independent artists, I think it's a win.
Yeah. That's my take on it as well. I'm team independent all the way.
Yeah.
That's like who we like to work with at SBN Studios, is because it's a lot more personable. And again, with our goal of wanting to help artists make a living from their art, people that are signed are already doing that pretty much with whatever advance they get and whatever, assuming they have a decent deal.
Yeah.
So as an independent artist, I wanted, like, that's our audience. So I wanted to just, from another independent artist, to see what your take was. So yeah, I appreciate that. But I definitely agree with that. I think it presents a huge opportunity for artists like you to come in and have some light shined on y'all, because all these platforms are dominated by these big artists, and a lot of people's main gripe is, oh, the algorithm and I can't get attention. So this should help lower the competition and make it easier for the people that are truly talented at this level to stand out. Yeah, like the other day I reposted one of my G Styles, and I just posted it after I heard the UMG news. I posted it, and I think I put text on it saying what I said if you since Kendrick's music got taken off of platforms, this is for the real K-Dot fans. Right. And I posted that, and I've gotten the most engagement that I've gotten over the last like 5 videos that I've posted. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it's just the algorithm is, you know what I mean, less saturated, I guess, and it's pushing more of like that grassroots independent artist music. So yeah, man, I think it's a thing to leverage, especially if you're an independent artist. Like, post content, repost content, shoot more content, and just keep putting your music out there. Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about? Anything you want to plug, anything like that besides the project? Because we'll get to that. But I'll just say pray for Palestine, pray for Sudan, pray for Congo. You know what I'm saying? Keep doing your research, do your knowledge on what's going on around the world, because it's important. Even if you feel like you don't have a hand to play in it, it's important to know, because there may come an opportunity where you can play a hand in it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's important to be aware about what's going on in the world. So yeah, I think that's important to plug. Absolutely. All right, bro. Well, that's all I have. Thank you, bro, for being a part of episode number 1 of the SBN podcast. This is a big moment for us, and I couldn't have thought of anyone better to help represent what we stand for as a business and what we're trying to do in the world. We're aligned very much on that. With what you're doing with music, we're doing with everything else, with the business and the visual side of things, with directing music videos. So thanks for being here, bro, on such short notice, because I asked you like the night before you flew here. Yeah, but I'm impressed that you put all this together in such short time, and man, this is amazing. So glory to God, bro. That's all I could say. Yeah, literally, bro. Everything just fell together. Beautiful. So beautiful, man. Where can we find you, bro? If there's people watching that don't know who you are or want to learn more, listen to your music, connect with you, join your community, how can they do that? So yeah, all streaming platforms, G-Salih. Salih is SALIH. And then socials at The Real G Salih. No dash on the socials, but yeah, that's where you can find all my stuff. Oh, bro. And feel free to reach out, send me DMs. I respond to all my DMs pretty much. So yeah, anytime if something you feel like you connect with something, hit me up and let me know about it. And I'll get back to you. Yeah. Oh, all right, bro. That's it. That's a wrap, man. That's dope, bro. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here, bro. Thank you for having me on here, bro. This is dope. I think this is gonna continue to evolve, bro. Like, this is technically, it is not episode 1, but this is episode 1 of the new setup. Yeah, bro. Keep doing these joints. Like, I feel like the more, and you can interview like homie yesterday. He was a biochemical. Was he biochemical engineer or am I getting y'all confused? Yeah, chemical engineer. Yep. Okay, he's a chemical. He did mix the two, but yeah, chemical engineer. But and Caleb, what are you studying? Biomedical. Okay, it's probably too nuanced, but yeah, like somebody like that could even be, you know what I'm saying? Although, yeah, I know it's based around artists, but he's an artist too, you know what I mean? So that could be something interesting. He's like, a musician, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, man. Just like variety, plethora of different diversity of people. I think this is dope. And I already know like I don't even have to, like I can already envision how you're going to cut this up and how you're going to put it together.
Bro.
So it's going to be dope. So yeah, man, I think it could reach a lot of people. And
yeah, I think so too.